Ladies and gentlemen, the story mode fragment farming has reset once again with 29 days left on the clock. I am here to give you the best teams for story mode so that you can fly through this autoplay and get the most fragments possible so that you can go into the fragment combine and you can combine it and you can get a CTP just like this. Boom. Okay, just imagine that was a CTP. There is a chance to get them. There is a chance. Just not the new one, not the CTP of Conquest. So let's take a look first at the stages that characters are featured in most heavily, because that's what we want to do to sort of narrow down our pool of potential upgrades, because players use these resets for the next 30 days where there's going to be lots of fragments to farm to dictate which characters they're going to build up once they have enough reserve of resources to make decisions like this, right? Once you're past that initial point of just upgrading the absolute best characters, the absolute best DPS and leaderships and supports, and you can start getting into other factors, this is one of the big ones. So take a look here. Arrow is featured 3 times this month, and it's on 2-2 and 2-3. So she's gonna lock. She potentially could lock you out of getting a lot of combines if you don't have her, because she's featured twice in a stage that drops the same fragment, right? That second piece of fragment. So that's pretty huge for Arrow there. As we continue along, Black Dwarf featured twice, Blue Dragon featured twice. Cool, neat. We keep going here. Emma Frost featured twice. Gore featured twice, unfortunately, so very expensive native tier 3, but he is featured on some pretty nice stages, especially 13-3 for that potential P card fragment from the Thanos missions. Kate Bishop featured twice, Hela featured twice, so mostly free-to-play characters so far featured twice, besides, you know, your Emmas and your Blue Dragons and your Gores. Then you have Jean Grey featured twice. Yeah, she's expensive, but, you know, high priority character, regardless. No question about that. Namor featured twice there. We have Sentry featured twice. We keep scrolling. And then here, boom, back-to-back, Thor and Titania, each featured 3 times. Now, this is excellent because they're both very easily farmable characters, and they're both solid, right? Thor, amazing farmer, decent for other content, and Titania still holding it down as one of the best combat female types. And I put that in quotations because they're still lagging far behind every other typing for ABX and ABL. But yeah, they're both featured 3 times, so you definitely want to make sure that you have them built up if you don't already do. And then that's basically it. Everybody else is featured 1 time, or they're not featured at all. I think this is actually a really good month overall, not only because of the spread of characters and the ones that are featured a lot not being paywall or very difficult to obtain. That's the first sort of, I mean, Arrow, yeah, but otherwise. But the other issue, the other good thing about this month is you don't have a lot of weak characters in the leadership position, which is something we've had to deal with in the past. So let's say if we take a look at the All War, you have Luna here in the leadership slot, so she can easily crush this stage. You have Thor, easily crushes that stage. You have Thor again, and then you have Nebula. Nebula is probably the only one that's questionable for this stage. You'd want to run it through with MODOK or Loki, but actually not Loki because he doesn't have elemental damage anymore. So you actually need it to be MODOK, which sort of informs you for the first move for the super team, the super farming team, where you're going to move Nebula off of the leadership slot. You go over to the future ends here, where we usually have problems with really weak characters being put in the leadership position. Not the case here. You have Sif, who's just fine at clearing the content. Jean Grey is going to fly through it, and Venom's going to fly through it. So very easy on the difficult stages this time around. However, we do have a couple of issues. So the first issue we covered already is going to be Nebula on 12-2. The second issue for some players is going to be Kraven on 9-2. Now, it certainly depends on your Kraven build. It certainly depends. If you skipped his uniform, then he absolutely needs to not be at the head of the team. However, you'll notice Titania in the leadership position, or you'll notice Titania here when she can be in the leadership position. We'll talk about that in just a second. As for the Dimensional Clash, you do have a lot of easy characters in the leadership position, except for Squirrel Girl on 1-2, right away, right at the beginning. Now, for some players who have been farming story mode fragments for a long time, you may have a big surplus of first fragments. I used to have like 500 of them. I actually stopped farming 1-1, 1-2, and 1-3 for the past few months. I haven't farmed them at all, so that has saved me, you know, maybe like 1,000 energy. It's not that much. They saved me 8 energy per day, and it saves me about 240 energy per month. It's not the end of the world here, but this has helped me to have energy for other content. But it also highlights that if you have a surplus of certain fragments and you have the time to skip them, Like, for example, I could skip for the next few months the 5th fragment, right? Because I just have way too many compared to everything else, because not all stages drop the same number of fragments. So you may be in a position where you can skip 1-1, 1-2, and 1-3. So that is one factor to consider when we're talking about Squirrel Girl being in the leadership position. The second factor to consider is whether or not you have her paywall, seasonal uniform. If you have it, then you're fine. Just run through. She can clear it. If you don't have it, I don't know if she can clear it. This is a really bad uniform from like 5-6 years ago. It's pretty weak. So you might have to test that yourself. Honestly, it also depends on your Squirrel Girl build. But I do want to highlight that because it is a seasonal uniform for a less than popular character who did not have a lot of hype on April Fools when her and Thanos got uniforms. The rest of the characters, honestly, are more than capable of clearing themselves. You got Thena, you got Shang-Chi, Green Goblin, you got Titania there. The only other issue I see besides Nebula, Kraven, and Squirrel Girl minus the uniform is on 7-1. You may have issues with Scorpion. However, Scorpion's a lot stronger than a lot of people remember, and he's certainly better than Squirrel Girl minus the uniform. He may even be better than Nebula minus the uniform, and that really comes down to his kit. His kit has a lot of buffs. It also gives him 6 seconds of invincibility on this skill that he can pop almost, every 8 seconds. So it's very nice. And then he also has a barrier. He doesn't have a heal, which is really the only issue, but the heal is, it's kind of a luxury for older characters. So with that being said, with those characters identified as potential, threats to screwing up your autoplay, I have the following autoplay teams set up here. So this is the first team I have set up. It's Squirrel Girl, Titania, and Nebula. You want Nebula on the left or the right side here because you don't want her to run 12-2. You want it to shift to MODOK. So that's why Nebula has to be there. Nebula is kind of a no-brainer. Now, Squirrel Girl is here, not for me, but for players who don't have Squirrel Girl, right? If you don't have Squirrel Girl's uniform, then you certainly want to put her in the left or the right position so that instead of using Squirrel Girl, it's going to use Mystique or Kitty. Or you can test your Squirrel Girl to see if she can clear that stage. That is one of the issues. Now, this, of course, doesn't solve the Scorpion issue, so you will have to run through 7-1 and see if your Scorpion does well. But having Titania in the leadership position means that here on this stage, you don't have to worry about Kraven anymore, because now Titania will always be lead. Okay? So that solves most of the stages. It just puts Scorpion as a question mark. So you just have to test Scorpion on 7-1. If you don't want to test Scorpion on 7-1, or if you have Squirrel Girl's uniform, then you're just going to put Scorpion here. And this is what I'm going to do, to be honest, because I don't need to worry about Squirrel Girl. In this case, I don't have to worry about Scorpion either way, because then it's going to shift and use Star-Lord instead. So this is basically the team. But the nice thing about this month is it's not very difficult. There's not very many bad teams. There's not very many bad days. And 2 of the characters that are bad are only bad, Squirrel Girl and Kraven, if you don't have their latest uniforms. If you have their latest uniforms, I'm more than confident they can clear the content. So you really just need to worry about Scorpion and Nebula. And frankly, you may only need to worry about Nebula. So really, you have a ton of flexibility this month. What that means, by the way, if you don't, let's say I don't need to worry about Scorpion, right? What that means then is I can do other things, like I can set up on specific stages where I think it's going to take a really long time with a particular character, because some characters are just really slow to clear content. Like, let's say here on 6-2. Wasp can do it. She's tanky enough, but she's going to be slow. If I don't need to worry about Scorpion, then I can actually put Wasp there, not because I think she's going to die, but because swapping over from Wasp to Spider-Woman is going to speed up the clears. If you want to speed up how long your game is on autoplay, that is something that you can do this month, because you have the flexibility of that, because we don't have so many characters putting pressure on, failing their clears and potentially losing us fragments. So that's how it shakes out for this month. Hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what team you're going to be using for autoplay, and let me know who you're going to be ranking up based on the availability of characters this month and then sort of the frequency of their availability for different fragments. Thank you so much for watching. Smash the like button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.